My name is Heather Grant. I'm running for United States Senate, and yes, this is my first time running for any political office. Currently, right now, I'm a family nurse practitioner at an urgent care in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, but my decision to run for Senate comes from what I was doing just prior to coming home to North Carolina. I was active duty military. I was stationed at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. My last job there was working with soldiers who were coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan. While I was there, I learned that we had a very hard time dealing with our government and getting them to understand what was best for our soldiers. Bottom line, perception was always the most important thing, and it made it very difficult to do my job. I thought coming home, government would have a little less control over my life. I'd get back to what I considered normal, and wasn't what I came home to last year. I was a nurse first before I joined the military, and I went into nursing because of what happened with our middle child. He was diagnosed with a rare disorder called mesenchymal hamartoma of the chest wall. I met a wonderful oncology nurse who was my lifesaver, because when they tell you at 9 months that they think your child has cancer, your world falls apart. She was my godsend, and I wanted to give back to just one person what she gave to me, so I went into nursing, and from there I realized that our population most hardest hit for healthcare providers are our military. So few doctors and nurses want to serve and take care of that population because of the stigma of the war that we've had going on for so long. And my dad's a Vietnam veteran, and I would listen to him talk about what it was like for him to come home, and I decided that those were the people that needed me most. I have 3 children. My first one is 21 years old. She is at the local community college taking care of trying to get her degree. I have a 12-year-old who is at the middle school playing football, and then a 4-year-old who's in preschool. So my day starts out with getting everybody up and getting them ready to go out the door, and then I work on campaign stuff, make phone calls, and get myself ready to go to work and take care of patients at night. And lucky for me, I have a husband who's there from the beginning of the day to the end of the day with me to help me out. I had a fairly normal childhood. I didn't realize that we weren't rich. I just knew that, you know, we had a house, we had cars, I had food, but I come from a very large family. We would have family gatherings, and there would be no less than about 35 to 40 of us at each family gathering, and it was a lot of love and just a lot of helping each other out. And I think that's the thing that resonates with me the most, and the thing that I see lacks the most in our nation today is that we don't have that extended family, that love for each other, that just being there to help each other out. Because I don't ever remember being a child and my dad needing something, or my uncle needing something, or my grandfather, or the next door neighbor, that you all just didn't go over and pitch in. Because my children's lives, their future, they're at stake. If we continue to go down the road we're on, they're not going to have a life like what I grew up having. There's a huge difference between what my 21-year-olds experienced and what my 12-year-olds experienced. And it scares me to think that my 4-year-old's life is going to be even different than that 12-year-old. Their freedoms are slowly being taken away, and people are sitting back and allowing it to happen. And it wasn't time to sit back anymore. It was time to get up and stand up and do something. And this is what I decided to do. This is what I felt like I had to do. Honestly, Obamacare cannot be allowed to be implemented. What a lot of people who are not in the healthcare industry, and what a lot of the new people to the healthcare industry don't realize, is that once we get this started, once Obamacare progresses to actual implementation, there's no turning back. You cannot undo what's already been done, and we're seeing that now with our electronic medical record system. Once we hook to this giant database, in Washington that's scheduled to roll out in 2016. You're not going to be able to undo who has access to all your medical records, your social security number, your date of birth, and all of your IRS information. And that's one of the things that people don't understand. Well, what I'm seeing now, before this even implements fully, is that my patients are coming to me going, can I get that brace cheaper at Walmart? Are you sure I can't get that cheaper at Walgreens than the brace that my insurance company is going to make me pay part of my copay for? So defunding Obamacare is not the dumbest thing to be heard of. It's one way to attack the law that should have never been passed to begin with. And I feel like we have to fight it from as many angles as we can fight it from, because it does not need to be implemented, because there's no way out of it except for a single payer system. And there are regulations most people don't even know about that fall in line with this law getting started and going forward. The solution to it, you have to stop it. As far as changing our health care, one of the things that we can do immediately with stopping it is work towards interstate actual commerce between our insurance companies that can help defer costs, make things a little more cost effective. And we can also stop the Medicare and Medicaid fraud that we're seeing. And that helps save us money and makes it so that we can implement more cost-effective care for the people who truly don't have health care and who need it. No, I don't support increased regulation, and the Second Amendment is very plain. I, as a citizen, have the right to keep and bear arms. It does not say what type of arm. It does not say what type of ammunition can go in it. Ultimately, if you want to boil it down to just the simplest terms, if I wanted to go get a cannon and put a cannon on my front or back lawn, I could sit it there. I can sit the cannonballs next to it. What I cannot do is fire that at somebody. That's when it becomes an illegal act. The actual owning is my right. I have every right to own it. Once I break the law by shooting somebody, then I am personally responsible, not that weapon, not the person who sold me the weapon, and definitely not the ammo that went in the weapon. The person is responsible. Regulations do no good for that. People who are criminals or who have bad intentions will find a way to get a weapon. It makes no difference how hard you make it for them to get them. They steal them. People sell them illegally. It doesn't help.
And just to be clear, when you talk about firing the weapon, I assume you mean outside of a self-defense situation.
Oh, yes, absolutely, outside of a self-defense situation. Cutting spending. There are lots of places we can cut spending, but one of the first things that we can actually do that will help us bring in more money is reform our tax code. Not as simple as it sounds, but it can be. If we do away with the entire tax code that we have now and go to a fair or flat tax, we can within 1 year have such a surplus that we would actually have to get Congress to agree not to spend any of that money so that we could drop the rate that people pay. And we would have plenty of money. The Laffer curve is one of the things that proves that our current taxation system doesn't work, and it's part of the reason why we have so many people living off of subsidies, because it's much cheaper and they make more money.
Congress is currently at an impasse as it relates to the U.S. Farm Bill, which historically combines both payment for farmers and the food stamp or SNAP program into one giant omnibus bill. What do you see as the way forward as it relates to this bill, and do you support cutting of either of those benefits within the bill?
I think one of the things we should do is scrap the bill and just write it about the farmers. That's one of the things that bothers me the most. It's one of my 8 points of reform on my platform, is that we take legislation that needs to be passed, and then to get somebody else to agree to sign it, we throw all these little things in there so it becomes about 20 things instead of one thing. Farmers have needed help in the past. If they continue to need help, that should be something that works out through the state, not through the federal government, because the Constitution does not allow for us to control agriculture in the states. As far as the SNAP program, there's so much fraud and waste in that now that you have to really go through and wade through that program. And I'm not so sure that it's a program that the federal government should be doing either, because that's not in the Constitution. If the states want to put those programs on, then they're the best people to do it. Just like when our country was founded, where do you think those people went for food? It wasn't to the federal government, not until after the Great Depression. They went to their local communities, their local churches. The people helped each other out, and that's one of the things that we've moved away from, is we expect big government to give to us, and that's not the way it should be. We work for it, we help each other out, and people used to work for food. They needed bread. Somebody baked a couple extra loaves down the street. You say, well, guess what? I got some eggs. How about I trade you the eggs for the bread? Or do you need that grass cut? I'll mow your yard if you'll give me a loaf of bread. And we have just done away with that. We are now raising generations of children who go, oh no, government's going to give me money for food. I can go out and do whatever I want. I don't actually have to work. They're going to give me a place to live. They're going to pay my power bill. I don't need the newest everything, but I can lay around and only play video games or play music and do what I want, and I'm never responsible for anything.
President Obama recently asked Congress to take up a war resolution act against Syria. What do you think of the president's handling of the situation? And more specifically, if that resolution had come in front of you as a U.S. Senator, would you have voted for it?
No, I would not have voted for the resolution. The only reason we should ever go to war is when we are personally attacked or our allies are attacked. And to me right now, the only firm ally we have is Israel. We as a nation are not in danger. Our citizens are not in danger right now. Neither is Israel. We've not been attacked. I don't think Obama has handled this very well. He's shown once again that he's too busy going on vacation and playing golf to truly pay attention to things, and he's allowing other people to make his decisions for him. Whereas if he sat down and used any common sense at all about what he's doing, he would understand that you don't ever draw a line in the dirt unless you're ready to stand there toe to toe, and if somebody crosses it, be ready to either knock them back across it or stand your ground while you're going at it. That's it. And he drew a line in the sand where we had no business to draw a line in the sand. We've got no business over there. They're not attacking us, and they're not attacking Israel. We should never use drones here on American soil. We have the right to privacy. We have the right to our papers and everything to be private. That's given to us in the Constitution. So government has no say-so. That's why our troops cannot come and work in the states and do any kind of military police. That's why we can't put them along our borders in those states, is because we have that right to be safe and secure. In other countries, it would depend on the situation. If you were talking about a country that was housing Al-Qaeda and we were trying to get information on that horrible terrorist group, I would support the use of drones rather than actual soldiers being sent to gather information, because the drone's not a human life that can be given. But if we're just spying to be spying just on whatever government is, that's not our right either. If they're not our enemy and they're not attacking us and we're not concerned about immediate dangers to ourselves, why should we be sending drones, especially armed drones, into another country? We would consider it an act of war if somebody sent an armed drone to fly over our states.
People all across the political spectrum, both the right and the left, tend to believe that government has some sort of role in directing our daily lives, whether it's morally or whatever. What do you feel is the proper role of government as it relates to individual liberty?
That one's easy. They have no place in our day-to-day lives. The federal government was set up to help consolidate the original states so that we could join together and we would not be something to be picked on individually. We knew we were on this continent together. We knew that if we worked together, we could grow and that we could create a nation that was wonderful, that England, France, Spain could not come in and take over. But the states were supposed to be the main government that oversaw the day-to-day lives, and the state was still not supposed to step in and tell you where to work, how to work, what you can raise to eat, and those kinds of things. So for me, it's a no-brainer. The federal government has no business in my everyday, day-to-day life. They shouldn't tell me what crops I can grow. They shouldn't tell me what animals I can farm. They definitely shouldn't tell me whether or not I can drink unpasteurized milk and things of that nature. And if the state feels like that there is a danger to their people in that state, then that's different. And that's why we have those state governments, because what's good for North Carolina may not be so good for Montana or California. Or we and South Carolina may see that we work well together, that certain things are great for us because we're neighbors, we're so close together. But that doesn't mean that our government in the state should be the same as the government, say, out in California.
You bill yourself as a constitutional conservative, according to your website and your campaign literature. You were the second person to enter into this race who bills themselves as a constitutional conservative. And the primary criticism that I've heard about you is that, we've seen in many GOP primaries over the past few years that when you get multiple people who kind of fall under that umbrella, it tends to dilute and split the ticket and ends up leading to an establishment person often winning the primary and going on from there. How do you answer that sort of criticism to saying that you're coming in and almost playing a spoiler effect?
When I entered this race, I had no idea who was running. It made no difference to me because, unfortunately, the person we have to beat after the primary is Senator Kay Hagan. And I did listen to some of the candidates. I knew that there was a laundry list of us at that time. And after listening to the ones who came out, I don't think that they can beat Kay Hagan. I don't think that they resonate with enough independent voters that she doesn't become the one that wins in the end. And that's why I joined the race, is because I am just like everybody else who lives up and down the street from me. I'm like everybody else who lives in North Carolina. I balance my budget every month. I understand what it's like to put a kid through college, to still have kids at home, to have to go to work every single day and get that paycheck, because if you don't, you no longer have a roof over your head and you can't make the car payment. And I haven't forgotten what that was like. But in the same vein, in my job in the military, I was a second lieutenant, the lowest ranking officer you can be in the military. And yet I was a branch chief. And what that basically equates to, it means I ran an entire group of people and I answered to generals. In that, I learned that when you apply common sense, when you look at what people really need and you're willing to fight for that, you can get what you need. I saw almost 2,000 soldiers in the 26 months I was there. I still hear from some of them who tell me thank you for what the group that I worked with was able to do for them. And that group has been emulated at bases all across the country. Not because what we did was so wonderful, but because we showed them ways that you could fight, ways that you could put things into your standard operating procedure so that you could get things through, so that you could help soldiers get to be where they needed to be. And that's what I bring to this, is the fact that I'm willing to stand there and fight. And if I was willing to do it as a second lieutenant to a 4-star general, you can be assured that there's nothing anybody can do or say to me once elected that would scare me or cause me to back down, because they have no control over my career. None. Because when I go to Washington, I'm going with the fact that I'm going to come home and be a nurse practitioner again. To go to Washington to serve the people of North Carolina is not a career progression for me. It's an opportunity to serve just like I served in the military, and then to come home just like I came home in the military. And I will fight. I will fight for what you tell me you want in the state of North Carolina, not what I think's best. And that's why I think you should vote for me, because I'm going to go take the fight to Washington, and I'm going to listen to you every step of the way.